Hello and welcome back to the Movie Pope Podcast, and today we are going to be taking a look at Beetlejuice, the 2024 sequel to the 1989 classic starring Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Jenna Ortega, along with Moira, Catherine O'Hara. But before we dive in, remember to like, comment, subscribe. We're always pumping out new content, and since it's October, we are working to get out these reviews of all these great classics that we hope you will be kind enough to join us over the next few weeks. Other than that, can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to us or watch us, depending on where you're catching us, whether it's Spotify or YouTube. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Beetlejuice.
All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Beetlejuice Squared, right? We got Beetlejuice, and we get a good chunk of our cast coming back, right, for this film. So Winona Ryder, she returns as Lydia Deetz, and I like how now she's doing the show. I think it's some type of like Ghost Hunter ripoff type of thing. It kind of made me think a little bit about that Michael J. Fox film Frighteners, because he would kind of use like ghosts to kind of like haunt areas, and like would get money out of it, right? And I kind of felt like she was doing the same thing with the ghost here, which I kind of thought was a little bit funny. So I did enjoy that. So Lydia, she finds out that from her stepmother, Delia, right, who's once again played by Catherine O'Hara, that unfortunately her father died in a plane crash. Now, Charles, right, the father from the first one, is played by Jeffrey Jones. And I imagine why they didn't want Jeffrey Jones to be in this is because, well, Jeffrey Jones spent some time in prison for being a creep. So it kind of made sense. I was like, hey, I guess, I wouldn't want to bring back that actor either. So it makes sense. But I did think it was kind of like a little bit odd that he remained in the story, all things considered. But, hey, it is what it is.
But why would you reference his character then? Why couldn't it just happen off screen? Like,
yes. Yeah.
Because basically they I don't know why they had to go this route, but not only did he have to get into a plane crash, but he also had to get basically the top part of his torso chomped off by a shark. And they make it's like, yeah, Jeffrey Jones is a piece of shit human being for what he did, but they kind of overdo it, and they do it a lot in this movie. But just the fact that they've got Charles Deetz running around without the upper part of his torso, and the fact that they want to remind you he died a pretty violent, horrible, terrible, agonizing death. It's like, yeah, we get it. You really, really want to bury this character, but you could have done it in a more subtle manner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or if you go that route, then just like have him die a terrible death because he is not a good person in real life.
Either that, or you do it off screen. Just do it off screen. Just say he died, or don't even or do what they did in that '90s show. That '70s show Revival, because they brought back all of the characters except for Hyde, played by Danny Masterson. And not because I watched both seasons, not once did they ever mention Hyde. So you could have done that and never mentioned Charles or anybody else, and the movie would have been fine without it, right?
Very true, very true. They had different options. The fact that he had any type of role in this as a deceased body was bizarre choice to me. So, but yeah, so we have them. So we find out that Charles died in a very dramatic fashion. So Lydia takes her, I guess her producer / boyfriend / fiance with them. They go and they pick up Delia as well. And like I said, thoroughly like Catherine O'Hara in this. I thought she was fantastic. She was probably my favorite character to see come back. And I think Catherine O'Hara absolutely nailed it out of the park.
Oh, so, she was acting more like Moira from Schitt's Creek, if I'm honest with you.
Really, I've not seen Schitt's Creek, so I will not be able to pass judgment on that.
She's very dramatic in Schitt's Creek because on that show she she's a former soap opera star who just basically just overemphasizes everything. So in hindsight, it's kind of like, was Delia before Moira, or is, Delia the fulfillment of Moira? I don't know. I mean,
That's true. That's true. So, but yeah.
By the way, check out our review, Schitt's Creek season 1. It's out now.
Good plug. Good plug. So yeah, they pick up Delia and they go to get Astrid. So Astrid is our new character, right? I would say probably the only new character. She's played by Jenna Ortega, right? And I feel like at this stage, Jenna Ortega is just typecast as that goth chick, right? Because we see her obviously, getting a lot of fame and notoriety in the show Wednesday, and I feel like this is obviously an offshoot of that.
Can I bring up a point here? So
yeah, of course.
So you remember, like, back in the day, Tim Burton. Whenever Tim Burton made a movie, he always made it a point to put in Helena Bonham Carter.
Helena Bonham Carter. Yep.
So she was in a lot of his movies. I know the big one was Sweeney Todd and Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel, and obviously, don't forget Johnny Depp is basically, Tim Burton's boy toy. Like, he has to be in every Tim Burton film just because. But I kind of get this feeling, and I don't know if you get this too. Do you kind of feel like Tim Burton kind of finds like the perfect, I'm going to say perfect in air quotes, muse, and then he kind of latches onto them and then looks for an excuse to stick them in whatever project he has coming up. So obviously Jenna Ortega, we know her from Wednesday, in season 2 just wrapped up a few weeks ago. She was in Beetlejuice Squared. I'm kind of wondering, like, if she's become like, the new Helena Bonham Carter.
I think that's a fair argument, right? And I do think
I'm not insinuating anything, by the way.
No, I got
I'm not making any suggestions that he's kind of like, Charles Deetz or whatever, but it's just a weird coincidence, I would say.
Yeah, I hear you, and I do think there is something to that, right? And I think that's, directors are going to find that person that I think really personifies the character, and then they kind of get attached to them, right? We see a lot of, I think, actors and actresses like kind of reprise roles and do other things. But yeah, I would 100% agree with you. I think that Jenna Ortega is kind of like that new it girl. I think has that very obvious kind of connection, similar to how like Winona Ryder was that girl way back when. Now it feels like Jenna Ortega is the quote unquote new one. Think
about it too, because Diane Keaton was the it girl for Woody Allen, right? But Woody Allen found ways to kind of cast her in these movies, but she's playing different roles. So she's not playing the same old, jaded goth girl who hates life and who has a strange, morbid love affair with death, right? It just seems like with Tim Burton, like once he's found the girl, she's basically doing the same thing over and over again, which I find is a bit weird because, the whole point of an actor or actress is to basically take them out of their comfort zone and make them explore the full range of what they can do. I think Tim Burton kind of, in a way, not only does he latch on to the same actress, but he makes them play the same thing over and over again. And after a while, it kind of gets tiresome,
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I think, like, for him, I guess he has that kind of like constant character, and he's fine with them kind of just, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We'll just reuse you. We'll change your character name, but you're pretty much the same thing. So, but yeah, so they go to meet Jenna Ortega at school, and the group ends up going back to Winter River to have the funeral for the late Charles, that no one wanted to be in it. And I guess this is kind of, where one of those first kind of like shout outs come from, right? Because at the funeral, they sing that song Deo, that obviously was so prevalent in the first one.
Yeah.
But, throwing it in there because I think we do see a decent bit of kind of that nostalgia pop up from the original Beetlejuice.
Well, it's the first of many callbacks, by the way.
Yes. To put it lightly, too. So we've talked about a lot of characters that are either new or kind of reprising the roles. I had to admit, something I was surprised by was the total lack of inclusion of Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. I thought that was odd to me. Now, granted, I know Alec Baldwin's been, kind of, I would say, kind of maybe getting a negative reputation over time. Gina Davis, I honestly have no idea about where she is, but I know they kind of just like mentioned very briefly. They're like, oh, they kind of found a loophole and they moved on. But like those were two really key characters in the original one. It felt so weird to not have any of their inclusion in this. Did that bug you at all, considering how many other characters they're referencing?
But think about it. Given what the story or stories were in this movie, I don't really see what role the Maitlands could have played.
That's fair, though. I will say we will definitely talk more about the story in this, because to describe it as being all over the map, I think is doing it too good of a justice. So
we'll also keep in mind too. I mean, I think because that throwaway line, oh, they found a loophole. I just thought was a beautiful way to kind of wrap up the Maitlands story, and I felt like that was a good way to reference that, because this movie is all over the place, and they have both good references and bad references. Obviously, the big ones being Charles Deetz, the character who no one really cared for, and the character that we really didn't need to know what happened to him. Whereas with the Maitlands, the first movie, you kind of developed that relationship with them, and you want to know what's going on with them. I am happy to see that little model of Winter River still in
absolutely
and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But what I feel like what they should have done was, if they were going to do a sequel, and I felt like the sequel was uncalled for, but
of course,
hey, it's money. I felt like if they were going to do a story, I felt like Jenna Ortega. Jenna Ortega's storyline was probably the strongest right there, because
100%.
Because obviously, if you have a kid and you introduce the kid, you want to know what's going on with the kid, and the fact that she rebels against her mom and says, "I'm nothing like you," but then she has all these little quirks and habits, and you come to find out she shares her mother's gift for the clairvoyant. It's like, I think that's a beautiful way to kind of tell that story, showing the connection between mother and daughter. Whereas everything else, it's like, do we really need to know about what's going on with with Beetlejuice's personal life or anything like that? I kind of like.
We will dive into that.
I like Beetlejuice to be a mysterious character. Like, as soon as they introduced that, I was like, okay, he's just a regular guy now. But,
yeah. I was very worried about it. So let's talk about that, right? So we're gonna jump into the Netherworld, right? Because this is where, to me, the bread and butter of Beetlejuice always was. I just always liked the aesthetic of the Netherworld. We see Beetlejuice once again played by Michael Keaton, who is, I think, phenomenal, right? Michael Keaton just totally knocks out of the park with Beetlejuice as being such an eccentric character, and it's so cool to see. Like, this is almost close to 40 years, right? Since the original. Wait, when did the original come out? 30 years?
89. So...
89. Yeah. So 35 years. We'll cut in half, right? 35, 36 years, right? So to think that he's able to come back, and I still think care to share that same eccentric feel that he had back then, was super cool to see. So
if you think about it, it's like he, when he picked it back up, he didn't miss a beat. Like, he didn't have to relearn anything. Like, he was just back in the groove,
Exactly. It's like riding a bike with Beetlejuice. He knew exactly how to get back into it. So we have Michael Keaton. He's meeting with a cop. I'm not even going to say his name right. It's just Willem Dafoe, right?
Well, his name is Wolf. Well, yeah, his first name's Wolf, so you can call him Wolf if you want to.
William Wolf Dafoe. So I like that. So Willem Dafoe, in a totally wasted role for this, ends up, kind of mentioning Beetlejuice, and his ex-wife has kind of popped up again. Ex-wife is played by Monica Bellucci, who to me was also totally wasted in this. I know that she was, I think at the time, right, she was married to Tim Burton,
No, they were just dating. You know.
Oh, they're just dating. Okay,
Yeah,
so
they broke up. Well, as of recording, they recently broke up. So.
oh, okay. Well, we're sorry for that. Sorry, I guess Monica Bellucci's back on the market. Or for the people that are interested in Tim Burton, he's back on the market too, I guess. So, so we kind of get this, and you mentioned a great point, right? So we also get this backstory of Beetlejuice, where Beetlejuice was a grave robber, right? He fell in love with Monica Bellucci. And I guess Monica Bellucci was a part of some, crazy fanatical cult, and she ended up poisoning him. But the character of Beetlejuice ends up killing her before he dies. So it's all very weird, and I guess I didn't understand why he was Spanish.
It was Italian.
Italian. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's right. Italian. That made more sense.
Yeah, they're going for that Mario Bava, early 1950s Italian horror vibe.
Yeah, it's like so.
I didn't get it either. Don't worry.
It was distracting. It was distracting because it's like, okay,
I
know that
one of many distractions.
Yeah, it's like I know Michael Keaton's not speaking this, so it's just like he's just like sitting there like trying to lip sync with some Italian talker. I'm like, I don't know. It felt very weird. So, but I guess for you, Luca, right? I really liked the feel of the Netherworld, and I think they did a great job of keeping it very it felt very real and lived in, right? So it didn't feel like overly blown with CGI and all this other stuff. It felt like true sets and everything like that. Did you enjoy the Netherworld being I guess introduced back to it in this second film?
It's very Tim Burton-esque.
Absolutely.
If someone asked me, can you describe Tim Burton's aesthetic, I would point them to Beetlejuice because that is the best way to, because if you think about it, most of the other stuff that he's done has pretty much been adapted. Like Batman, for instance, he did Batman Returns, he did Planet of the Apes, Mars Attack. I mean, it was more contemporary, but I feel like Beetlejuice, was his way of exercising, complete control and having the freedom to create, a style that he felt kind of represented what was going on in his mind. And what I really, really enjoy are the corridors in I guess you would say it's like the Office for the Recently Dead. It's anybody who's familiar with German expressionism. He draws from those filmmakers, especially Lee. Have you ever seen the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a silent German film, and I won't go too much into it. But if I can find a link for that movie, I'll send it to you. But basically, it's a lot of angles. Everything's curved. Corridors aren't straight. They're kind of slanted at a 45-degree angle. And for the time, it was very revolutionary because it kind of gave us a sense that nothing is right. Everything's disjointed. Everything is not what it seems. So Tim Burton takes the visual cues from German expressionism and applies it to what he's doing in Beetlejuice and its sequel, Beetlejuice, and he gives us something that harkens back to cinema from way back in the day, but he also adds his own flair to it. So it's got a lot of dark, muted colors. Everything is kind of like, as you said, it's very lived in, and it feels very filthy too, right?
Oh yeah.
but at the same time, it's like you can believe like this is a place where people, well, I say people in the loosest sense, go to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's Danny DeVito, scrubbing the floors, or people sitting in the waiting room just waiting for their number to be called, even though it's outlandish, at the same time you can believe like it exists, right? Because how often have we sat in a waiting room and we felt the frustration of never hearing our number called, as we're just sitting there, waiting for God knows for how long until we finally get our appointment, seen. So I think I think with this movie here, in spite of the fact that everything is disjointed, the storylines don't make any sense, everybody's all over the place, you don't really know what their motivations are. It's the visual aesthetics that kind of brings and holds everything
Absolutely.
together, right?
Yeah, it does heavy lifting.
Right, and I would say without that, the movie kind of falls apart because it doesn't make any sense.
Of course,
right?
Yeah,
So
100% agreed. And like I said, I do thoroughly enjoy it for that reason, right? Because it is an opportunity for Burton to really just kind of do whatever he wants with it, right? Think about like Sleepy Hollow and all that other stuff. Like you can have this like feel to everything, but it's very much like reality, right? Like you have to kind of deal with the conventions of the world that we live in. For the Netflix world, it's like, hey man, I can do whatever I want, and I think he absolutely utilized that to the fullest.
Speaking of which, later on when Astrid meets that boy, did you notice that tree house, the tree that the tree house is built on, it kind of looks a little bit familiar to you?
No.
So that tree, so the way that the tree is angled, it's very similar to the way the tree from Sleepy Hollow is angled, right?
Really?
Yeah, exactly, because it's kind of bent, that weird shape, and it's got its limbs all over the place. It looks very, very similar to the tree that's grown over the grave of the headless horseman.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and check that out. That's really cool.
Yeah. Please check it out, just because there's so many visual callbacks, to his previous movies. But that was the one that kind of stood out to me, was the fact that you have, this tree that looks like it could have been transplanted from Sleepy Hollow. Really,
maybe it was.
And as I was watching, a part of me, it's like, so we're not looking at the Burton verse, are we? We're not looking at a situation where, where Winter River and Sleepy Hollow kind of coexist in the same, in the same reality, as it were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do like to think that tree's just been sitting in some back room for a long time, and he's like, hey, you know what? We need a tree. I got the perfect tree for this. And he pulls it out. So, but yeah, so we have, I guess, back in the overworld, or the living world, we have everyone's attending Charles's wake. Rory awkwardly decides this is the moment to propose to Lydia, is at her father's wake.
Wait, why? So what exactly? I know he reveals it later on in the end, but it just comes out of the blue. Like why would he just decide? Oh, you know what, Lydia, I want you to marry me. Why? Don't ask.
Everything with Rory's character's out of the blue. So that feels like pretty much anything that he could randomly do. I'm like, you know what? That seems like a Rory move, because he'll do just about anything. So
yeah, but he's also uptight, because later on when he's giving out treats to the trick-or-treaters, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to give you candy. I'm going to give you apples and raisins. And I'm just like, I'm just like, bitch, you better get behind that door before I start egging your house, man. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
Dude had a lot going on. Dude had a lot of baggage, for a lot of reasons. So
apparently this guy doesn't care what people think of him, because he's doing things at the most inappropriate moments, and he's just he's got no sense of, well, I would say no sense of decency, because even Delia herself was like, yeah, I don't want to deal with you, man.
Yeah, and I did actually think it was really funny to see Catherine O'Hara's expressions, because I think she was capturing what the audience was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, because
on screen doing all this crazy shit.
Yeah, because remember when she screams and he runs up in the house and he tries to hug her, and she's like, oh no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then Astrid, oh my god, like Astrid, she's so on point. And I wanted to get, and I actually do want to get your take on this one, because the way that she describes her mother, she's just like a broken individual. I'm like, that's a really, really powerful yet hurtful thing for her to say.
Yeah, she was cruel to her mom.
Yeah,
she was cruel to her mom, right? Like, and we see this, happen quite a bit, right? A daughter mom having an argument, not something that we've never seen before. And we realize that there's a decent amount of this hatred is towards the, kind of unknown father figure, that kind of like pops up, and she held him in such a high regard. And
he's not unknown. I think it's because they split, and then he died, and then Astrid blames her mom for that.
I apologize. Yes, it just So you're right. Like she knew him, right? She lived with him. I meant unknown just in the fact that, like, it didn't play like a huge part in the story up until a certain stage.
Yeah, I mean,
which we'll get into.
You say not present then, because
Thank you. There we go. I like that. But yeah, I do agree with you that they, she's very spiteful to the mom, and there's certain parts where it's just like, gosh, I can't believe that Lydia just doesn't want to just like smack her upside this head because of how she like interacts with her in a lot of these situations. So
she could do it in '89, but not in 25. So
that's true. Yep, that's definitely a time there.
But the way but when she says that line, it's like, because obviously she's at that phase where she's rebelling against authority figures, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that in itself, like, it's very brutal, but it's very honest, because Lydia throughout the movie, she's not someone who's very confrontational. Really, she wants to just keep the peace, and it really, really bothered me that Rory just walks all over her and just like makes all these declarations. And when he says, "Oh yeah, Lydia, I want you to marry me," she's like, okay. And it's like, well, Lydia, you could say no. I mean, it's not like he's forcing you into the situation. Yeah, it's a very awkward situation that he's placed you in, but you do have an out. And the way that Astrid just looks at Lydia when she accepts the proposal, I'm like, I think that is a very, very normal and healthy reaction to what's going on, because she recognizes that her mother, is being exploited, right?
Yeah.
And she recognizes the fact that, and I think too, she recognizes that that she doesn't want to be like her mother, because I don't think she really hates her mother per se, but she just doesn't want to be that kind of person who gets victimized and exploited like Lydia, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of weird, right? Because if we think of the first one, that's never Lydia's character in the original one, right? Like, this kind of felt like she changed dramatically off screen, and we don't really, I don't think, get the origin for why.
And Delia even mentions this too. She's like, "What happened to that little goth girl who was just so spiteful all the time?"
Yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, what exactly did happen to that girl?
Like I said, Catherine O'Hara was the voice of the audience. You can't convince me otherwise.
Well, I would say her and Jenna Ortega, right? So Catherine's kind of voices it, Jenna kind of expresses it,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, but yeah, so Rory ends up like trying to propose, and it pseudo goes through, right? Not to Lydia having much of a reaction to it. So Astrid takes this as an opportunity to kind of explore the town. And I think it's kind of fun to, I guess, kind of see the town, so many years after the fact. They made it very clear when they went over that little bridge section where the accident happened in the first one. They make it very clear that you're kind of returning to this place. So, kind of nice. And as she's exploring the town.
Yeah, and she passes the school that her mom used to go to, by the way. Yep. And I was going to mention, too, because we mentioned this in the pre-show, she's riding... well, it's not the exact same, but she's riding a similar bicycle to what her mom rode at the end of the first movie. And I thought as much as Astrid wants to distance herself from her mother by saying all these horrible yet valid points, at the end of the day, she's still her mother's daughter, right? Yeah. And whether she realizes it or not, like, she acts and behaves in a way that is very similar to what Lydia was. And as we'll later come to find out, there's a lot more that she shares with her mother besides bicycles and wearing loose sweaters. But I'll let you handle that part.
Yeah, no worries. So, but yeah, so as Astrid's kind of exploring the town, right? She in a bunch of weird circumstances, and I like how she never, she's going through traffic and almost hitting things, and she never thinks hey, bicycles have brakes, I could use those. She just kind of bolts through everything. But
never mind that. You kind of get the feeling she doesn't realize that other people use the road besides her.
That's true. She's very much seems to be in her own little world, so to say. And she crashes into the Sleepy Hollow tree that we talked about earlier. And this is where she meets Jeremy, the love interest. And I'm just gonna kind of stick a little note on that, because we're gonna definitely talk more about Jeremy, but I just wanted to at least present that. So she meets Jeremy, and back at the house, we see that Lydia's kind of talking with Rory about Beetlejuice and how she's really freaked out by it. And Rory decides, hey, you know what? I'm just going to summon Beetlejuice. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Well, you're forgetting the important point. Like before all of this, like she's seeing flashes of Beetlejuice all over the place. Right?
That's true. Yes. Yep. You're absolutely right. Yep. So
yeah. So like yeah, especially at the boarding school where she thinks she sees him, but it's just some kid in a very eerily similar jacket.
Yep. Yeah, we've seen flashes of it. It also happened at the during the filming of the show. She thinks she sees Beetlejuice in the audience. So you're absolutely right. There's a lot of we've seen a lot of the subtle nods to it. So Rory decides, hey, cool, I'm just gonna say Beetlejuice 3 times and summon him, and he gets they both get transported into the netherworld. Beetlejuice still trying to marry Lydia. Actually, kind of to think about it, how old was Lydia in the first one?
I was gonna say she's probably the same age as Astra. I think it's like 16 or something like that. Because
I think she's like 15 or 16. So that kind of actually makes
because you remember she goes to at the end of the first movie, she's going to that girls' school, which I'm assuming would be like Winter River's equivalent of a high school.
Yep. No, I agree. So yeah, probably 15 or 16 makes it a little bit. Obviously, in this one, Lydia's significantly older. In the first one, in some states that's not allowed. So, but
we'll also keep in mind. We'll also keep in mind too. Beetlejuice, is. I mean, he's getting to. He's up into 3-digit mark in terms of age.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, they even make a joke of the 300-year age difference. So
600 actually.
Oh, was it 600? Okay, thank you for correcting me. So a very significant age difference. Let's put it like that. So, here we are having Beetlejuice summoned, and I remember just kind of stopping there for a moment, and I remember thinking to myself, "What the hell is going on?" Right. So to give people a perspective, right, we're about an hour into this film, right? Like 55 minutes to an hour, and I just thinking to myself, like, what exactly is the plot of this story, right? Because we get like Beetlejuice is having this weird sequence with his ex-wife that also has that, police detective Wolf involved with it. Lydia is now in a relationship with Rory and they're going to be getting engaged. So like, is that the story? Or should we care about Astrid and Jeremy? There was just so many plot elements going on. And I had to just think, we want all this.
Well, as I told you, I think the main story was, or should have been at least, the story between Astrid and Lydia.
Oh, absolutely.
That should have been the main one, and I think we sort of get hints of that throughout the movie because it sort of gets resolved at the end. But I felt like, if Tim Burton could have cut out all, excised like all of the other, story beats that made absolutely no sense and went nowhere, I think that would have been probably the most resonant right there, is the fact that Astrid comes to realize she's no more different from her mother, who experienced the same thing. But what I also don't get is the fact that is that you're introducing characters who play absolutely no major role in the movie, because Rory, like he's unless he's supposed to be like the voice of the audience who doesn't believe, I really don't understand like what he's supposed to do, because he's just going around saying, "Oh yeah, I don't believe in any of the stuff. This is just a figment of my imagination." Then Beetlejuice does the famous showing what's in his face, kind of thing, and then but then later on, like, he conveniently forgets what happens until the shrunken heads guy, shows up, and then he's like, "Oh wait, that's right. I'm stuck in a nightmare," and then. I don't know. It's just so weird.
Yeah, it was a very bizarre choice to see all these plot threads. Like, I felt after a while, it's just like I need like a spreadsheet to figure out like, okay, how is each thing happening? Because I would say probably the most prevalent throughout the rest of it is Astrid and Jeremy, and they're kind of budding romance, right? So she ends up kind of meeting up with Jeremy.
Yeah, but that doesn't even go anywhere, though.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, exactly. Right. That's what I'm saying. The Astrid
Lydia storyline seems to be the most prevalent because Lydia, because obviously, as you know, Lydia, when she finds out what's going on, she's like, oh shit, I need to go get my daughter because
yes.
this is no bueno, really.
Yes. Yes, that's definitely the most like overarching plot to it. I guess this is, as far as the subplots go, this is the one they focus the most on, which is kind of, Astrid and Jeremy and the relationship that they have, because she finds out that Jeremy is dead. I would say kind of interesting because, I never really kind of got the vibe. Like, it's obviously very weird what's happening, but I couldn't quite figure out why I didn't trust him, right? So he takes her into the netherworld to meet her father. Jeremy, we find out, is actually kind of this like really screwed up kid that murdered his parents and everything. And that's why kind of jump starts Lydia to go find them and see what's going on.
But did you find his reasons for going to the netherworld kind of weird also?
Oh yeah, everything about it is weird. Just like it didn't make a lot of sense. And then he's like, has her like say an incantation, and it's like to get her soul, and like, it's
basically a swap.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it is. It's a soul swap, right? So he's, I guess just by Lydia saying that, or excuse me, just by having Asher say that incantation, now she's like kind of like, I guess, prepped to have her soul swapped. So there's all this like kind of weird things going on. And also just like a bunch of like very weird imagery, right? Because they go to like the soul train, right? And it's just like literally a soul train. And I'm like,
are you familiar with Soul Train? Do I need to explain?
No, of course not. It's just it was so weird to see that being represented in the film.
Listen. It was a great show. I mean, it introduced America to a lot of great artists. I mean, and plus you had one of the greatest hosts, in television with Don Cornelius. Rest in peace, brother. But yeah, I do agree. It was a little bit on the nose when they were doing the whole Soul Train thing. I figured, yeah, it's a great show, but I mean, you're at this point, you're referencing something that most of the audience will probably have no living memory of.
Yeah. It was like kind of just one of those, and I realized, there's comedy beats in it. Some are gonna hit, some's gonna miss. That one was like just totally missed for me. As far as that goes, because it's something we've seen before. So, but Lydia is trying to figure out how to get to the netherworld. So she, makes a deal with Beetlejuice, right, where she's going to get married to him, which is, kind of what you can see that coming from a mile away. And as both Lydia and Astrid are in the netherworld, they happen to run into the dad, right? And just the kind of like is there, and like you kind of see them go into like the worm world, right? I don't know what that's called, but we remember for the first one the weird worm world, which I guess they identified was like a moon on Saturn or something, if I remember correctly. But the dad saves them from there, and that's the only time you see the father, and he's gone for the rest of the film. And I'm like what? Why? Like, I know that they're trying to play up the father as being, very important, and he's there to kind of help support the two of them, right? Astrid and Lydia getting kind of closer together. But God, it just felt like totally like just an asshole that he just shows up, saves them, moves them over, and that's the end of it. You never see him again in the film. And it's just like kind of a constant thing that I see throughout this is this. And I'm just going to kind of run through the ending because honestly, it is just nothing but just total like chaos from this point forward, right? So the two of them escape, right? Astrid and Lydia. Lydia goes to the church where she's going to get married. But then we see that Beetlejuice ends up like tricking Jeremy to like go to hell or something. I didn't even really understand what the whole thing was with that, but that got Jeremy out of the film. Not that he was super critical anyways, but Beetlejuice kind of just fucks with him and he dies or something. I don't know. They don't explain anything. They just kind of move on with it. Delia, right, who I didn't kind of mention this, but she was killed by a snake, right? So she
they were supposed to be defanged, by the way.
Defanged, correct. Yep, they're supposed to be defanged, so but they're not. So Delia had made a deal with Beetlejuice to help find Lydia. So now Delia shows back up in the normal world with Beetlejuice at this marriage. Rory is given truth serum, where he admits that the only thing he cared about was money and fame. And I know we talked about Rory Dish a bit, but it's like, what is happening in this film? Like, who cares about Rory? Did Rory really have to be like this villainous character? Like, was this really what they're building up to? I had no idea why they made him just be some douchebag like this. It was just so odd. I just was like, okay, he's just a really weird guy that has like kind of his own ideas what he wants to do. But then they just straight up like, nah, he's just like this douchebag that just, was looking for, weak girls, in essence, to try to leech off of. And it's just like, okay, cool, whatever. Monica Bellucci shows up.
Oh! Dolores!
And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, she's been chasing around, has been chasing around the Beetlejuice this whole time. Beetlejuice suggests that she marries Rory, and I guess she's okay with it. They summon a sandworm. The sandworm eats the two of them. Willem Dafoe shows up, but he gets frozen, and then Beetlejuice gets summoned away. Did I hit everything? Is that how you remember the ending of this?
Well, don't forget all the shrunken heads kind of escaped and were running around town.
I forgot about that. Totally forgot. Yes, all the shrunken heads are out in the
world. Which, by the way, they never really resolved if they went back or if they're still wandering around.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we just have a whole bunch of with Bobs, right? That's what the name was, right? Bob.
Well, Bob was one of them.
Yeah, Bob was. Yeah, that's right. Bob was the. Correct. So, yeah. So, and just to make it even weirder, the movie ends with this like dream sequence, right, where Astra gives birth to a little baby Beetlejuice that started to walk on the ceiling, and I started to get like Train Spotting vibes for what was going to happen.
Don't you think it's kind of weird that mother and daughter both give birth to the same baby? Like, was that a little bit creepy?
That is true. Yep, that is true. That is a little bit weird, right? I mean, in a film that has a lot of weird imagery, having the same looking child is definitely weird. Lydia kind of wakes up from this dream sequence next to Beetlejuice, and then in an Inception style type of thing. That was actually a dream. So she was in a dream within a dream. And that's how the movie ends. And this was such a weird film for me, which I know it's, kind of on brand for Tim Burton, but it was exceptionally weird. Now, visually, I thoroughly enjoyed this, right? I think that the Netherworld was super cool. I really liked the aesthetic, the look of it. I think it was really cool to see these really extravagant sets and everything like that. I thought that the returning cast, right, especially Catherine O'Hara and Michael Keaton, I think were phenomenal in the roles. So I give kudos to them, because I think without their portrayals, I don't think I would have enjoyed this at all without them kind of being there. But holy shit, what is up with all these stories and subplots in a Beetlejuice film? I could not imagine why or how they decided that they needed to have all these story beats in this. Who cares about Beetlejuice's origin? It was a lot more interesting not knowing his origin. Knowing that he's just some grave robber, to me, totally took me out of it. Did I care that he had a relationship with Monica Bellucci? Absolutely not. Did anything with Wolf have any type of purpose to this whole film? Absolutely not. It was just a reason to have Willem Dafoe in this film. There was just so many things that just didn't make sense. And it's not a super long film, right? I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes. So it's not super long. So why have all this in here? And the other thing was, like, they really kind of went hard on the nostalgia, right? Like, you kind of got like the Deo song. The worm was back, and there's gonna obviously be elements that you're gonna bring back to it. But it just kind of felt like nothing really made sense. It felt like a story that didn't need to be told, and it just really bogged it down for me. So, Luca, I'll let you say your piece about Beetlejuice to the second power.
Well, what'd you think about Winona Ryder's performance?
I thought she was good in some parts, and other parts it just felt like she was just always kind of unexpecting of everything. And I don't know, I had a little bit mixed feelings with her. I think she had some good parts, other parts it just didn't work for me.
I mean, she was pilled out most of the time.
Yes, definitely felt that way with how she was doing it, because she kind of just has this like shock face that she does throughout it, where it's just like, oh, that's weird. And I'm like, Winona, come on, give us a little bit more than that. But like I said, Catherine O'Hara and Michael Keaton were by far my favorite performances.
Yeah, they were definitely doing the heavy lifting, and I'm like,
yes.
And I'm like, well, come on, Winona, you were a part of this too. Maybe you could do a little bit of the lifting yourself. I mean, well, let's just go to our final scores. So, what would you score this movie?
Yeah, gosh, I would say, I feel like I would give this just a 2 out of 5, and I think that's almost all because of the time that we spent in the Netherworld and just the aesthetic, how cool it looked. I think I just give a point for that. Everything else, it was pretty much just, especially just what they're doing with the story. It just felt like too many times it's just like, oh, the father shows up. Oh, he saved the day. That's the end. Oh, Jeremy's a villain. It's okay. Beetlejuice will just throw him in hell. It was just, there's just too much of that going on. And it just felt like it totally distracted from, like I said, this overarching story that you could have told with, kind of this, Astrid and Lydia kind of coming to terms that, that they're, really have this stronger bond than maybe they're showing at times. It just was a huge missed opportunity. So yeah, I'll give it 2 eye-popping Beetlejuice eyes out of 5.
I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, listen, if nothing else, I just enjoy it for the visual experience. I will say this though, I felt like Jenna Ortega did a pretty good job in this movie, and I felt like. And I felt like if Winona Ryder isn't going to do her fair share of the lifting, then Jenna Ortega will take over, and I think she does a phenomenal job at playing Lydia, not Lydia, in this movie. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that really bothers me, because I watched both movies today. This is actually the third time I've watched Beetlejuice at this point. But I just find it so jarring that out of all the characters who've changed so much, it's Lydia, really, because everybody else is pretty much the same. Beetlejuice is still this scumbag character. Delia is still this over exaggerated artiste who who is trying to express herself in so many different ways. I did not recognize Lydia at all.
Yeah,
I had no idea who, because I'm watching who is this person? She is. This isn't the teenager I knew from the first movie. Now, granted, obviously, people do change throughout their life, but there's elements about them that you can still recognize from way back in the day, right? Whereas here, it's these are 2 completely different people played by the same actress, right?
Yeah.
And a part of me kind of thought, well, if Lydia kind of went into the hereafter, right, I wouldn't have any issues with that. Just because I felt like there really wasn't anything else to add to Lydia's story apart from maybe she can try to be a better mother to her daughter, because her daughter's just resentful about the fact that she's being exploited, and that as she says herself, she prefers to spend more time with ghosts than her own daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So in which case Lydia comes off as a bit of an asshole, really, than in a narcissist more than anything else. But in her defense, she's being manipulated by Rory, who is more interested in turning her into a cash cow than seeing her as an actual human being. But I felt like with everything else, because we've talked about this with so many different movies. Tim Burton just decided, I'm just going to pack in everything as much as I can, and hopefully people will find something about this movie that they love. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works, is it? I mean, and you should know because you made the first movie yourself, so it's not like you're just like taking over a project from someone else. Now, I will say this too, because another movie that we're going to be reviewing next week is Sinners, and Sinners is a visually masterful movie. It's in terms of story, it's so much better, and the acting is so much superior, and there's so much tension that you can feel it, coming off the screen. But I have to admit, Sinners is one of those movies that I can watch it once and I'm good. Beetlejuice is one of those movies where I just can't help myself but going back to it. I know it's a bad movie. I know it's a bad movie. I know it's one of those. It's like someone who's on a diet. I know I shouldn't eat the slice of cake. I know I shouldn't, have like another scoop of ice cream. But it's just so good, but not in a good way. You know what I mean? It's like I just keep, because like I said, this is the third time I've watched this movie, and I just feel like there's something about this movie. It's not because I like it. It's just I'm oddly fascinated by just how bad it is. I just have to keep going back and watching it. So
I get that.
So it's obviously compared to its 1989, predecessor, it can't even hold a candle. It's not even worthy to hold its beer. But at the same time, it's like it's one of those things where but it's one of those things where it's just so bad it's almost good. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is.
All right. So yeah, let us know down in the comments below what your thoughts are. But Lee, why don't you go ahead and take us out here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So hey, if anyone liked Beetlejuice, let us know. I'm very curious for people that were huge fans of the first one. How did kind of getting to live back in this world again make you feel? Because certainly, I know we kind of tore apart the story and everything, but I think that if you've always been just a fan of like that Tim Burton feel, I think he really hits it well with this. So curious what people think. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.